we've had apologies from Sue Chandler, who has actually very recently sent an email to me. Have you read it, Chris?
I haven't actually read it. I just
No, well, it's useful and Richard Ralph. Okay. Right, the minutes of the last meeting, does everybody agree to them? Right, let's delete that. I missed my introduction, but I don't think we need one really. And then matters arising. I think probably all the matters arising are contained on the agenda. Okay, so now we had a whole lot of action points. If we could look at Sue Chandler's email, if I can find it.
I think the first item was Mill Alley, wasn't it?
Yeah. High Street and Seven Post Alley, wasn't
Seven
it?
Post Alley, that's it. Something alley.
Yes, this was about a so-called compromise solution for the steps between the High Street and Seven Post Alley.
Yeah.
And Sue said she would go back to the conservation officer, and she has done, but she hasn't had a response. I don't know.
Yeah, the conservation officer is quite busy at the moment. I've only just had an update today from a couple of other items in the town that was about a month old, so yeah.
Right. So hopefully we'll get an answer from.
Yeah, I've got a separate phone
Could
call.
you speak up?
Yeah, I've got a separate phone call with planning and enforcement team tomorrow, so I'll ask the conservation officer whether she's got an update on this with that.
Yes. I mean, I don't know what Sue is asking her. Well, she's asking her what the precise objection to a ramp is. Because it is a serious problem if there's no other route from the quay, and there isn't.
Well, you can take your life in your hands and go on the road.
Yes, exactly.
That's
So for progress point 1, DF said he would raise it informally with who?
The conservation officer.
The conservation officer tomorrow.
Yeah.
Is the conservation officer involved because of the wall? Is this what?
It's sensitive setting in the conservation area, and I think the first response Sue had was that it was a categoric no for any change to that area. Whereas I think Sue's, from the conversations I've had with Sue, she's gone back and asked what the specific objections were, if they could be mitigated, or whether there's an alternative solution that could, a compromise that we could achieve that would satisfy the heritage element, but also satisfy our objectives for increasing this accessibility.
Yes. If you do raise it tomorrow, can you send an email to all of us saying what?
Yeah.
And relieve us and email us. Ask all about what transpires. And SC will pursue this.
Can I just ask something? We talked about, I know this is to do with the to do with the Ainsley Court crossing.
Well, it's not,
No, this
it's an
isn't.
alternative
No.
in a way.
I know, but did we think, because we said Love Lane
Yeah.
was a way through to Mill Galley.
Mm.
So if you were crossing at Dangerous Point, but from the Bell, is the pavement wide enough to come past that area and into Mill Galley?
Passport area.
Well, you've got some houses. You've got the pub on the corner, or what will be the pub, and then you come down past some alleys, some housing, until you get to King's Lodging, don't you? King's.
Are you talking about going down Strand Street?
Yes. Is the pavement wide enough there? You've still got the problem of a pump down one side and up the other, haven't you, at the King's?
I don't think there's a drop curb on the corner.
I think I've looked at it, and you're talking about if you're going from the Bell Hotel on the left-hand side of Strand Street.
Yeah,
The pavement on the left.
No, I think you'd have to go up
No, you're
across the road by Carol Ridley.
No, you're not there. You're up at the Bell Hotel.
Yeah.
So at the Bell Hotel, you've still got to manoeuvre yourself across that place there.
Yeah, I think the only way you get onto the pavement is to either go up by Carol Ridley's and cross, or get over onto the pavement there, or go along the road against the flow of traffic.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to be doing that.
No.
But that's why I wondered if the pavement along.
But I'm saying the only way you get onto the pavement is to either go against the flow of traffic or cross over by Carol Ridley.
If you go to Strand Street,
You're looking
This
at street view or something.
yeah, if you go down here, down Strand Street, right, so here's the pavement I'm talking about. So you would come all the way down here. I mean, this might be a temporary solution, of course, I don't know.
Are you talking about the pavement on the left-hand side of Strand Street as you go away from the Bell Hotel?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you go down there, now there is no drop curb. Oh, well, there is, it's sort of here.
Well, I suppose it's.
But that, if you carried on down there, is this pavement wide enough to get through to Love Lane?
Well, I've
we
looked
take
at that.
we take a pram down. Oh wait, it's impossible to take a pram down.
Oh,
But for us,
I
with
don't
kids,
think-
it's not possible. So yeah.
I don't think
No,
it is.
okay.
Yeah, it's definitely
So,
not possible for
I
us.
mean, the only two routes, as far as I can see, if you've parked, supposing you're a disabled visitor, if you've parked in a disabled spot in the quay, on the quay car,
Yes.
on the quay car park, the only route is, and they don't exist at the moment, is either develop some route through Ainsley Court
Yes.
and then across the street, across Strand
Yes.
Street into Love Lane,
Yeah.
or have a ramp from the High Street into Seven Post Alley. Isn't that right, Chris?
Yeah, the only other way you do it is to go right the way down and then turn
Down the High Street.
down.
You-
Yeah,
Well,
turn
the
down
other
by.
way.
Hang
It's
on, hang on, hang on, let
King's,
Chris
King's,
speak.
what is
By
that? King's
Nationwide.
Road, King's Alley. Sorry, Chris,
Yeah.
here, what's this one?
That's-
No, that's a different one. You go
Yeah,
right
It's
the
not
other way down
Holy
here.
Ghost.
When we just
Yes,
came.
Holy Ghost, you
Oh,
can
yes,
just
you
about
could
get
just
down
about
there.
get it. Yes.
As long as you don't meet someone coming the other way.
That's
No,
right.
here,
Mm.
King's, what's
Especially
it
so
called?
another
King's-
disabled
Hang on,
person.
don't all talk at once. So Chris is saying you could go down
Cricket.
Holy Ghost Alley and hope very much that nobody will be coming in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Because it's just about wheelchair wide.
If someone else is on one of these coming the other way, you
But
get
there
someone
isn't a
that's
drop
lost.
curb at the far end of Holy Ghost Alley, is there? I think we found that when we did it ourselves.
No, but I think you can just about turn on the pavement.
Oh, yes.
But must admit, when we've got the pram, we want to take the kids down the quay. We walk through the butchery. We come past there, we go down Pillory Gate, and then right up the quay that way.
Yes, but there's a problem about that.
Yeah,
because
it's
it's
very
a
narrow.
lamppost in the way.
Yeah, the pavement's nowhere near wide enough.
No,
The Three Kings Alley,
yes.
right, that is a comparatively flat surface. It hasn't got it actually,
No,
so if you were able to go up through King's Post Alley, that lead to almost opposite where the milk
Yeah.
there? Yes.
yeah, the only problem would be getting to
Yeah, it's that piece along there. That's a bit
Strand
wider
Street.
than it is further along, but you've
Yes.
still got the problem of coming across the really busy
Absolutely.
road
Yeah.
at the Bell. That's yeah.
As I said, you've either got to go to Carol Ridley's and come back round the corner, or you've got to go against the flow of traffic. Whichever way you
It's not
fancy,
good. It's
No,
not good.
none of it's good.
whichever way you fancy taking your life in your hand.
Yeah.
We'll come on to the Ainsley Court problem, but I do think if there were a ramp into Seven Post Alley, that would be
That's
a
part of the
major
issue,
contribution.
isn't it?
Okay. Then, oh yes, so we're coming on to Ainsley Court now. The second point is a route from the Quay car park into the town via Ainsley Court with a cushion crossing over Strand Street into Love Lane. I'm repeating this so that people who are watching can understand what we're talking about. And it was agreed that Sue Chandler would look at who owns the building and the land and come back to us. And I did a little bit of work on the land registry, and she's done a little bit more, and has found out who owns that land. So that's an advance in that we do now have the names of 2 registered directors, and we can write them.
Yeah, because it's freehold, she's saying.
So why does that make a difference, it being freehold?
Because they've
Their
got to
position.
set up their own sort of management company, which is what
Right.
they've done.
Right.
So effectively, if writing to them would enable us to directly approach them, they
Yes.
presumably have then got to approach the people in the flats
Yes.
to agree. So it's not
Yes.
like going through another.
Yes. I mean, that's sort of step 1.
Yeah.
Because then there are also steps which would have to have a ramp
Yes.
built. Do you remember? We
Yeah.
Right down to the
and then the knock on to that is that there would have to be some safe way of getting across Strand Street.
Yeah.
And that's this proposal to have a cushion or possibly dropped curbs. That might work.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a real advance. So shall I, as chair of this group, write to the 2 directors that have been identified? Okay. So, see, you will write to the directors of Ainsley Court. So, asking, well, shall I ask them, I'll tell them what it's about and say, let's have a meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Asking to meet with them about the possibility of allowing people on mobility scooters etc. To come through their freehold property. Okay. Then parking spaces blocking the dropped curb from Market Street into Milk Alley. So the answer is, yes, parking services are willing to consider removing the 2 parking spaces that obstruct this dropped curb, but have pointed out that But there is another dropped curb the other side of the War Memorial, opposite a dropped curb on the other side of the street, which is not within the parking zone. Does this suffice? And you talked to Sue about this.
It does. It's, the only problem, as you experienced, is it's not very comfy going across those pavement slabs because they're all like this and it's all over the place. So
you think it would be better if you could use the dropped curb, which is obscured by...
it would, but then how often is it going to be necessary to use that? When I was talking to Sue, she was saying they're not that keen to do away with a parking space, which they would have to do.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you've got to be coming out between parked cars, which is a bit of a no-no.
Yeah, the vision.
So,
but your problem, the problem is, it's okay if cars actually do park in the parking bays,
yeah.
but they often park where
Oh,
they
yes,
shouldn't
we'll
be
just-
parking
oh,
on
I
the
just
yellow
passed on
line.
that, yeah.
And they'll be parking across that because it's not clear. It's not clearly marked. And
No.
I think that's another issue.
Well, I did say to Sue, is it possible, they're not going to say yes to having Dayglow paint on a drop curb, but is it possible just to put just like a red, dark red, where the drop curb is, so it signifies actually there is something different here. And she did say she would talk to highways about that. So no one's wanting to deface the town,
No.
but yeah, it's not that easy when you're in a car to see the drop curbs that are made up of the old style paving slabs and old style curbing stones. They're not as obvious as modern concrete squared ones are.
So let's say that we recommend that Sue Chandler continues to pursue this for the other drop curb beyond the War Memorial, and pursue the possibility of highlighting that curb to prevent people from parking on it.
Yeah.
But they'd be parking there illegally, wouldn't they?
But then it's reliant on the parking wardens actually being there and catching them.
I see. Okay.
And in the evening, when you've got a restaurant, you've got your Italian restaurant and the other one, and effectively that is often chock-a-block there, and people will park even on double yellow lines anyway.
That's all right.
Okay.
Parking warden won't be out at this time of night.
No.
Okay, then the introducing a new dropped curb between Boots and Millards in Market Street, and that was combined with the possibility of a dropped curb at St George's into Sandown Road. What she says is...
They're continuing with the St George's Road Sandown one.
Yes.
Because it's of typical highway construction, whereas the heritage element of the inner town
means it has to have York stone and granite set edging.
And the expense is disproportionate to normal highway work.
So it would have to go into the HIP, and I always forget what that highway is.
Highways improvement plan.
Okay.
Be number 54 on the list.
Number 54.
And I said only do one a year.
Accepted that I'm minuting that we've accepted that it has to be appropriate, dropped curb, appropriately architecturally or whatever one calls it, in between Boots and Millards. The town team is responsible for the HIP, is it?
Well, the town team introduced it with Atlanta J, the CEO,
yes.
after the 2018 traffic survey that was done
Yes.
throughout the whole town. So effectively, we were then asked to just take all of the issues and list them, but KCC had never seen such a long list, and so they then came back and asked us to prioritise the list, which Richard Ralph did with the CEO and some input from me as well, but we prioritised it, but we were then told that they would only do, because we're a parish, they only effectively do one thing per year.
Yes.
So there were, as I said, I think there were 52 things on that list. Because it came from all over side.
So in the long run, we're all dead.
Exactly. Well,
I
I certainly will be.
What?
I hope I won't be dead.
I think we all are heading that way now. Right.
So you could move, you possibly could move it up the hit list, because
this is where yearly we need to, and this is where overtaking priorities need to add into the process.
Yes,
Whereas
yes.
when we did the original document, not that we didn't accept that accessibility was a challenge, it just wasn't as forthright in our minds as it was at the time. I think lorries were dominating the narrative at that time, wasn't it?
Yes.
So yeah, but it's an organic document that needs to move with our priorities.
So who is responsible for looking at that list again? And
I think it's been delegated to the CEO
Right.
to move that forward as it is. I imagine, I can't see a situation where it wouldn't go back to full council for the next year's plan, because we'll have to redecide our
Right.
priorities based on what KCC are willing to take from our current priorities.
okay, well, we'll come to our own, this working group's priorities at the end. But we need to review the HIP. And when would that review by the council take place?
Well, I think it depends very much upon, to review the HIP, even if we sat and reviewed it between the CEO and ourselves right now, we still have to then create a meeting with KCC, the people who are responsible for it there, to agree how we've moved or changed things.
Right.
And once we've agreed that, then I think it goes back to council
Yeah.
again. So it might go to council twice.
Yeah.
But
So there has to be
it has to be a meeting
on the agenda at, say, the next STC meeting, there should be a proposal to review the HIP,
Yes.
taking into account the priorities of this working group.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps the wording needs to be that the working group accepts that Sandwich Town Council has set its priorities for the current year. Can we add in the Disability Access Working Group's priorities to the next iteration to be submitted to KCC?
And when would the next iteration
I'm
be?
sure it's September, October time, isn't it?
Okay.
I'm sure that was the deadline we
Well,
had for the last
to
one.
be honest, Anne, I think you'll find that the agreement from town council was not last September, October. I think it was the year before.
I think, yeah,
I think
the
so. I
original
think
one
it
was,
was.
yeah.
I think it was in 2020.
Mm.
We agreed the list and priority,
Mm.
and then of course everything is stopping and starting,
Mm.
and then nothing really happened last year at all.
Right.
So this priority list, one assumes, has just been rolled over into this year, right? That I don't know. There's no one to ask at the moment. But it does need to be, because it isn't. It is, to be fair, it isn't only about the disability and access now. This is about the whole of Sandwich.
Yes.
And all of the issues that those residents raised.
Yes.
And because we'd already dealt with lorries, well, they're coming back again, but we've dealt with lorries. This was the 2018, just what is it your priorities are in your area with respect to traffic. Speeding was the main one.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if one way through this might be to put it on the agenda of the next town team meeting, so that the town team can look at priorities. What do you think?
Well, we can
and
look
then
at
report
them.
to the town council.
We can look at them. That's not an issue. But we can't go any further until whoever it is at Sandwich Town Council can negotiate. Now, if they give us permission to deal directly with KCC without the CEO, I mean, maybe
When you say
the
us, so
council.
you're talking about this group or the town team?
No, the town team could possibly speak direct. We could second someone on, we could say, right, we need a meeting directly with KCC, and then maybe second or bring in a councillor to that meeting, along with a representative from this group, to look at what that HIP report is, the status of it now.
Yeah.
And to say that we want, so you can actually still go through to put your agenda item through at the next council meeting to say that you want the HIP report reviewed.
Yes.
But it's about who then reviews it from Sandwich Town Council's point of view.
Yes.
Because that would normally have been, well, it wasn't, it was Amanda Jane as a project manager. So now it will be her, within her domain, moving forward.
Yes, but obviously the
a,
councillors involved. I mean,
I often, the only councillor I can recall who was involved in that process was Councillor Carter, Paul Carter.
Yeah,
I can't remember who else volunteered.
I don't know.
Well, I would obviously volunteer for it, so
we can raise it. I can put it on, but our meeting is not till the
yes,
25th of May, till the...
yes, and I can raise it. I mean, I can ask for it to go on the agenda for the next council meeting.
Okay.
A review of the HIP.
Yeah.
Yes. And the HIP could be attached. I don't think I've ever seen it.
I think it's an Amanda Jane
Yeah, it's a
document.
fairly huge document.
Yes, but it would be good to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, then absolutely.
For the HIP priorities to be reviewed. We'll ask at the next council meeting. Right. The broken curb outside Boots, this defect has been reported.
Sorry, can I just, didn't we agree that some money had been set aside in this year's budget, town council budget, and next year's town council budget, that was specifically for this, so effectively it might not be affected by the HIP.
Can I just, I realise now why
Yes.
I put at the top of this agenda Chair's introduction, because I was going to say in my introduction that I'd been told that there is £2,500
Yes.
in this financial year, that is from 22 to 23,
Yes.
STC's budget, £2,500 put aside for this working group.
Yes.
So one of the things we have to emerge with at the end of this evening, if possible, is some decision about what priorities we have to spend that money. And it could of course go on a broken curb outside Boots if we thought that was very important. But I think there are other things that we have to talk about as well. So it's just possible, if the defect has been reported, that it will be dealt with and it won't come out of that budget.
No. And that shouldn't really come out of the budget because it is
it's a highways.
it's a maintenance issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So noted that the defect has been reported. We'll be interested to see if anything comes of that.
But that's STC, isn't it?
KCC.
It's pavement, isn't it?
KCC is the curb response.
Okay, then the signage beside the almshouses onto the butts. Now you had a meeting with,
Yep, Sue and I met at that, and she's agreed to go back to the council or to highways and ask, can they please put the paint so it actually lines up with where the access point is, because as it stands, people can legitimately park right in front of the removable post
yes,
without actually
that's right.
committing any form of an
Yes.
offence, and then
Yes.
it leaves that much width if you're lucky to actually get prams and scooters through.
That was just lines, wasn't it? There was-
No, they've written keep, but yeah, they have to keep clear.
Yeah, but it's
The
not
drop
a-
curb
Yeah,
actually finishes about here somewhere,
yes.
so the actual lettering keep clear doesn't line up clear at all.
No.
So
No.
as I said to Sue, either someone sat in an office and put the mark in the wrong place, or the person with the paintbrush wasn't capable of thinking. Because why would you put keep clear to the side of the area that you need to keep
Yeah.
clear?
Yeah, but there's no sort of change of work of road surface or anything.
No.
Purely it's
As
a
I said
line.
to Sue, if you were to move that keep clear over by
Yes, well, the problem-
3-4 feet, you could then, there is then room to put that parking space,
Yes. So
would
the-
just about squeeze in on that other side, so you've not actually lost anything.
Yeah.
Not really parking spaces there either, are they?
No. Well, they're just spaces that people park in.
Abandoned.
Because they've got no yellow lines on them.
No.
And the people at that end of the road, if I remember rightly on the HIP report, particularly asked that those be defined
As parking spaces.
because they have nowhere to park, because you're then on top of the level crossing. And they did ask if there could be a couple of parking spaces on the other side of the road, because it was quite wide as you come around that bend. So that is on the HIP report.
Yeah, okay. And I just noted that Stu has contacted them. Then 7 is a dropped curb outside the Nationwide Building Society. Well, I delivered a letter to the manager of the Nationwide Building Society on Tuesday, and I have had no reply of any kind. And frankly, I don't really expect one, but maybe I shouldn't say that in public. But I just asked to talk to you.
About
I would imagine you'd get the same response when I asked for a letter to be sent to Nationwide about the reduction of their opening hours being the only building society service in the town. We got a very long letter back detailing the state of the national banking and how people have converted to mobile banking and apps and things like that, and it didn't really justify or explain any of the local nuance that we have in Sandwich.
But there must be somewhere that we can go to at least above the local.
Well, I would have thought so, but try finding the name of a person on the Nationwide Building Society website. Impossible. I don't know.
We can find CEO quite easily.
Yeah, that's probably the in order to get a reaction from that, the executive complaints department will generate a response.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it could be that they're not, because of their opening hours and where they work from, it could be that there wasn't anyone there to deal with it. Is it last Tuesday that you
Yes.
sent it? So,
Dan, will I have to go back to the council to ask to write to the chief executive?
It depends on the wording of the resolution. If it was to write to a specific person, then if you ask a right to nationwide, then there's enough scope within that resolution
So
to.
the minutes are just gone on. Oh, I can check that. So which department is it that you just found?
Oh, well, I'll have to look it up. I'll send it to you, but it's quite.
Could you
probably
just-
say you
Yeah.
might be. Yes.
Is it worth just, when they're open, just going in to find out first what they did with the letter?
Oh, yes, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that. See you will go into the branch and find out what happened. Okay, and DF will send CU the contact details of the chief executive or whatever. Okay. I mean, they'll be closed, if I have to go back to the council, they'll be closed altogether by the time I actually manage to,
It is joe.garner.
can you send it to me? Okay. Some kind of road marking in between the Barbican and toll bridge that indicates pedestrians have priority. And Sue says, I've emailed the highways officers with this suggestion and they've agreed they will look at it. Okay, well that's some sort of progress. Okay, pedestrian markings.
They're going to look at it and to do it.
No, look at it.
Because that is a way you can affect the hit report if there are a number of road marking issues.
Yeah.
We did manage to pull them together and say this was one item, no matter where they were around town. So, yeah, because you don't send a lorry with a marking on to do one thing per year. So, we pulled about five together, I think. Not that they've happened yet, but we did.
Right. Let's move on to new issues. And this is item 11 on the agenda. Application by owners as a waiting room for tables and chairs. I attached the correspondence to and from members of the working group and Chris's letter to us and the plan for the tables and chairs. Today is the last opportunity because the opportunity to object to that proposal, if that's what we decide to do, has to be in, that our objection has to be in by midnight tonight. And I've also, as a resident, myself, written an objection and had a response which indicates that KCC is as much involved as DDC. I don't really understand this because as I had assumed, and I don't know where I got that from, I think from the notice that's actually on the waiting, beside the waiting room, that we should write to DDC.
My understanding of it is because it's a licence application, it goes through DDC's licensing team, they facilitate it, but because it involves the highway and KCC property, then they're involved just as much as well. But DDC are the vehicle in which the correspondence goes.
And does the objection then have to go to KCC rather than DDC?
DDC.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So that, because I got this email today, quite late, I mean too late for me to do anything about it. Here we are. Yes, I had a DEC said the matter of the removal of the bike rack will be dealt with by KCC. You will need to contact them to discuss this issue. So, so I then wrote back. I said, can you let me know who I should contact at KCC about the removal of the bike racks? I've looked at the highway permits and licenses section of their website, and it isn't immediately obvious. I would be grateful if you could let me know ASAP, since the deadline for objections is so close. And then this woman wrote back, it will be dealt with by their highways department. Their telephone number is, and but it was too late by the time I got it to phone.
Well, so I've just seen on Facebook that Jack has, from the waiting room, has provided an update where he says that they have agreed with KCC to fund the removal or relocation of the bicycle racks. So it sounds like the two different things have been separated out now.
The two separate things are the bike racks on the one
And the
hand
table
and the
chair
drop
license.
curb on the other. Yes.
Yeah.
So who's responsible for the dropped curb?
KCC.
Well, that's
The
good.
tables and chairs will be dealt with by DDC, and it sounds like they've washed their hands of that and handed the highways element back to KCC, which, if Jack from the waiting room is correct, he's saying he's already agreed with KCC to fund the removal of the bike racks.
But the problem is that for us, this group is the dropped curb.
Yeah. But there's a bigger issue here, because when the planning department, the planning meeting, the plan and this agreement that he'd already got to remove the bicycle racks was not part of what the planning committee was discussing.
Yeah.
So actually, their request was they need more information before they can make a decision.
The planning committee.
The planning department. So that's what they were asking for. Now, actually, they've, in a way, the planning department, the planning committee and STC have been misled, because it's already moved ahead. It's got the plan was already there. The permission has already been granted.
The permission has been granted.
Yes, and Jack.
But Jack's saying he's already
got permission.
paid KCC or funded the removal of the bike racks with KCC. The thing we were discussing at the planning committee was just the licensing for the tables and chairs.
So he's already had, because what we were saying, or what, not we, but I was just an observer, but what was being said was that actually there were bicycle racks there, and the bicycle racks weren't being used, not all the time, but they were in use, and so you couldn't get 7 tables and chairs.
No, you couldn't, no.
And the bicycle racks.
No.
But what he said is he'd already agreed with KCC to pay for the removal of those racks.
But have they got permission? I mean, it's DEC that gives permission for the tables and chairs, is
The
it?
tables and chairs,
Yes.
yes, yeah.
So, but and there's been an agreement. Is it contingent on a decision that has yet to be made that the tables
I
and
don't
chairs
know. I don't know. I mean,
the
all of that
waiting room will
was
pay
news.
for the.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, you see what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, I don't. But all I'm saying is that, you know, if the bicycle racks aren't there, then there would be space for more tables and chairs.
Yes.
If it wasn't, if it still had access via a
Yes,
drop
I
curb.
know what. I mean, I've said that. I mean, the drop curb. I mean, we can't afford to lose drop curbs in Sandwich.
Does he say something on Facebook about drop curbs?
No,
He doesn't.
not the way to say.
No, nobody's bothered about the drop curbs apart from us.
Do you want me to read this out?
Yeah.
We will also ensure the required distancing rules are adhered to when the tables and chairs are installed. This will allow people to continue to use the pavement as they currently can. So the thinking there is that they will continue, people and mobility scooters will continue to use the pavement adjacent to the building, and that the seating will be where the bike racks are. But there's no drawing to indicate that. So, but it does actually say to use the pavement as they currently can. There will be cafe barriers, dividers located around the seating to provide safety and privacy to our customers and passers-by. Our aim is to enhance the town centre, etc. So, but that's basic, that is the bit about the dropped curb. Well, it doesn't actually mention the dropped curb, but it says that people will be able to continue to use the pavement as they currently can, which would mean they would continue to walk between the building and the tables and chairs or bike racks and access the drop curb that way. My concern originally was that there was going to be an attempt to route people and prams and buggies and mobility scooters around the outside,
Yes.
where you've actually got two posts, and there's the risk that they might fall off the edge into the traffic, which wouldn't have been any good. But if the idea is to put the tables and chairs on the outside, that's a slightly different. But there's no, I'm not sure that it's clear enough.
No.
So anyway, that's me.
It isn't clear, and the big issue I have is that the right information was not passed to STC planning group in order for that to be properly discussed. So, and to then say that the deadline was today, when everyone was waiting for a plan.
Yes.
So
really,
why
that's not been
can that
done
not be
properly.
challenged? Can that not be challenged? Can I
I
still
just
see
want
what challenge?
to hear what Chris has to say about how easy, if it really is the case that there will be some sort of divider across that pavement, which will mean that the tables and chairs will be located beyond the divider. Is that what seems to be? And that there will therefore be a clear passageway.
I'm just looking at the photos that you attached to your email. The drop curb's not there on that front corner, is it?
It's on the corner. You can just see it there.
Yeah, it's by the new inn, isn't it?
Well, it's opposite the new inn, yes.
Not that side.
So you'd have to go around the waiting room and down the side of it, where people might be walking between the waiting room and the tables and chairs.
It doesn't seem to me to be satisfactory, actually.
I don't think it's particularly safe for the people sitting on the tables and chairs either. Because the traffic is coming out of
I'm
the
not
cattle
sure I'd want
market.
to sit there
Exactly.
eating something
They
and
come
then walk
around.
around that corner.
They're going to come round that corner from New Street in front of the Guildhall. Then they're coming down the cattle market. They're coming across from Delft Street into Delft Street, across that hatchway. So actually, that
Road
is
dusty
really
one
a dangerous
comes in.
corner.
Yeah.
And you're going to have people sat there,
No.
maybe with children.
Well, the thing
Someone
is, they've
silly.
done their sums, presumably, and they think that they will only start making profit if they have 7 tables and 14 chairs. That's how it's working, isn't it?
Well, if one were being cynical, maybe they think they need 5 tables and chairs and they've applied for 7.
Oh, I see.
Maybe that's far too
I don't know
cynical.
what the answer is to this.
Well, can we agree something that could come from this group tonight to say that we very much regret that this has been sort of sprung on us, and that it seems to entail the loss of a dropped curb, which is of vital importance in central, well, everywhere in Sandwich.
It isn't clear how safe access for anyone with a buggy or a wheelchair is going to be able to manoeuvre through that space.
Okay, let me start making notes as to
I'm
what
just
we have to
trying to
say.
think. There's when you cross the road by Costa, where the zebra crossing is, there's no drop curb up that end to get to come along. There's nothing here to allow you to come along the front of these.
No, actually there is a dropped curb outside Carpenter's.
Yeah, but you've got to drive along the road again. I would have to scoot along the road from Costa's to be able to use that drop curb.
Ah, of course. Yes.
Once again, I'm going to do Evil Knievel. It's, yeah.
But I mean that, to get from Carpenter's across to the Guildhall forecourt.
Yeah. Well, yeah, well, if I was going, I wanted to use any of these shops along the front there.
Yes.
How would I get to it?
Getting to Carpenter's.
Carpenters, etc. All the other little shops that are along there. Yeah. How would I do that? There's the drop curb we're talking about behind the bus shelter. And then there's Carpenters. Well, I've crossed the road by Costa. I now have the choice of going along the road, along New Street to get on Carpenters, or go around the back and go against the traffic along Delve Street, because neither pavement on that stretch is wide enough.
No.
So,
So if you went to Costa's, you'd cross on the crossing
yeah,
to get to the other side, on where the corner is of
Where
the
connected.
Market, Market Tavern,
yeah,
and No Name Shop is.
yeah.
So what you're saying is there's nothing between Finn's and Delph, no Name Shop.
No,
There's nothing on that piece of the
There
road
that
to
I can
cross
see.
over.
no.
No drop curb there.
So now I'm back to either having to go, let's say, along the road to Carpenters, or against the flow of traffic on Delve Street, or I've got to come across the front of the Guildhall, somehow get across Moat Soul. So I think there's
That's
a drop
the cattle-
curb.
Well, that's the cattle market.
Yes, I've got to go through the Guildhall, round there, and then try and find a way to get across from Malcolm Waite's garage on Delve Street across to the bus shelter.
So
It'll
what
be
you're
using up my
saying-
battery quite well.
You're saying, Chris, is that there's an additional problem. That
Well, there's no other way to get onto any of those shops.
no.
No safe and easy way to get to.
But
if I wanted to go to the
this
chip shop.
particular drop, yes, this particular drop curb doesn't actually ease that issue, does
Well, you
it?
take that one away, well, I've got one choice now. I have to drive along New Street where the buses are.
Yes.
Is it, when the new plan is in place for, is there a drop curb there opposite Carpenter's? Because there isn't one in front of the Guildhall at the
Just
moment.
trying to find the vacancy.
But as well, if not only is there a drop curb, if there's no pedestrian crossing there, there's not an automatic right of way for me to
No.
go across the road
No,
anyway.
and there won't be another pedestrian crossing
No.
because of the.
No, I was talking to
distance.
Sue about it the other day, and she was saying basically you've got two roads and one of them's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's whether or not, even if, because it will be easier once the inlet is built out for in front of the Guildhall, that would be a sort of a flat pavement. So if there is a drop curb built into the new area that was opposite the one at Carpenter's, if you were coming out of Costa or the Guildhall,
Yeah.
you could go straight across the front of the Guildhall onto the drop curb, still a bit
Right,
pretty
so-
dangerous, and go across to the one outside Carpenter's.
Yeah.
And then from Carpenter's you could get access either way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You still can't get into No Name Street very easily or round
Who did the personal look? So
It really means that there's another possible problem if Dan can't find out.
There is a drop curb in the plan.
in the plan, For the
for the
Guildhall
Guildhall forecourt.
And where is it?
It's not direct, but it is.
Sort of,
Yeah.
you could go from
It's-
that
yeah,
curve
yeah.
to the one on
It's
the
significantly better than the current arrangement anyway. But yeah.
But what, but
Bus stops
we
there.
drifted off the subject. I mean, well, we haven't, because I have to say that in my objection, as a Sandwich resident, I said we're going to lose a drop curb, and, or at least it's going to be rendered useless if we have these tables and chairs, and therefore the owners of the waiting room should pay for the placement of another dropped curb somewhere else in central Sandwich. I mean, that would be the logic. If they're paying for the removal and replacement of the bicycle racks, then they should also fund another dropped curb.
Yeah.
And that might be the answer, might it not?
It might, but it doesn't sound as though they're removing, that they intend blocking the dropped curb. That's from what he's written and that, and what Christina just read out. It doesn't sound as though he's saying he's blocking the access to the dropped curb. But without the plan of where those tables and chairs are, and how he's going to separate a walkway with the tables and chairs, which we've now got, or the council has got no access to what that plan is, and no time to object or confirm confirmation of it, and that to me is where it's all wrong. I mean, was that done on purpose?
Who knows? It's all very interesting. But can we write, make a statement which I would send to them before midnight, and I would send it to Dover District Council and to Highways at...
Just send it to licensing at dover.gov.uk.
And
CC the ensuing as well.
yes, and to Highways, I think, at KTC, because it's so confusing. But what do we want to say? That we've met this evening, this working group, I would say what we were, met this evening and was dismayed to discover that the plan, the full plan, has not been made available.
And that decisions have already been taken.
And it seems to be the case that decisions have already been taken. Was dismayed to discover that the full plan has not been made available.
That's the.
I mean, what we've got is that little drawing which is pinned up, but that
But it's
doesn't
different.
indicate what.
That drawing looks as though the tables and chairs, right, he's sitting that way on, so he's,
the two double doors on the front of the building there, and
Yeah.
the one side
Can you
of the
see?
doors are there.
Yeah.
See? Yes, we've got
Yeah.
our distributor. But what seems to be being proposed at the moment now, according to Facebook, is that there's going to be some sort of passageway made so that people can get by. Is that right?
well,
I think that's what
he's saying.
That is the statement.
A clear mark of some sort to differentiate between tables and chairs and where you can walk.
And that people will be able to pass through on the pathway as they currently do. And I think that's an important part of that
because
sentence.
their way in from the bicycle racks. Well, they have to be because they wouldn't.
Well, actually, I do, because I cross that whole junction from the other end of Delft Street to this one. So I go straight across the long bit, and yes, I go straight onto the bicycle racks.
Yes.
I do that.
Yeah, so if the bicycle racks are removed, and looking at that plan, we've got tables and chairs right next door to the premises, and not only that, in that plan you have a chair, a table and another chair. So you're not that way round, you're out.
That's
that way.
right. But according to some statement on Facebook
Yeah,
today,
yes.
that's changed. Is that right?
No.
That the tables and chairs will be put further towards the road.
It's
and
not,
then,
I'd say it's not clear, to be
No,
honest,
no.
because the statement that Waits have made on Facebook is that there will be some form of boundary around the seating area, but that people will be able to continue using the pavement as they currently do. Now, as they currently do, is that for the most part that they walk right adjacent to the building.
yes.
So they've got the building on the right and the bike racks on the left. So that would suggest that the seating was on the left where the bike racks are. But that isn't the picture. That isn't the picture
Yes.
that's been drawn.
So I'm not sure. So far I've got this working group met this evening and was dismayed to discover what?
More confusion. Sorry.
So Christine, you're not a member of this.
No, I've gone.
Dismayed to discover that plans have already been approved.
Well, have they?
Yes.
The plans haven't been approved. The difficulty is they're saying that
Who is
Casey, Malcolm Waits, the representatives, are saying that they already have an agreement from KCC to remove the bike racks.
Okay.
So whether that, I doubt that would be.
So that perhaps we say that the proposal to remove bicycle racks
Yeah.
has already been agreed.
Yeah, I imagine there's a statutory 28-day consultation period that goes with any application like this through KCC. And I imagine if there has been a discussion about removing them, I imagine it would have been pending a successful consultation period with no objections raised. KCC would facilitate the removal or replacement at their cost.
At whose cost?
The
Waits.
the applicant.
But how did anyone know? There was a 28-day consultation, but at what point was anyone informed that that consultation was in place? Because no one knew about the application.
Okay, so according to the legislation, when we have received and checked your application, an inspector will visit you. We will contact Kent Highway Services, who will then carry out a 28-day consultation. We will write to local businesses and residents who may be affected by the street furniture. Kent Police, Kent Fire and Rescue, the local town or parish council. So, by the sounds of it, they contact the immediate residents of which I...
But the town, they should also have contacted the town council.
They did, yeah. That's how we discussed it at planning.
But you didn't discuss it at planning because
No,
they
they
didn't have a
decided not
map.
to, yeah. I'm not on the planning committee.
Yes, you are, Dan. I saw you there.
I'm not on the committee, no, I just go as a guest, but yeah, I'm not on there, I've got no voting rights.
Oh,
But they hadn't seen, as an observer of that meeting, they hadn't seen a plan, and I don't think they were aware of any application that had been made for the removal of the bicycle racks at that point.
No.
So that's the point that we're making. So there was no plan submitted with the proposal, and there was and planning committee or STC were not aware that an application had been already made and possibly approved for the removal of the bicycle
I
racks.
think that's another issue. I'm not sure, Christina, quite whether we can intervene here. I think that we're the Disabled Access Strategy Working Group, so we should focus on this dropped curve.
Yes.
I don't think, we can say that we've only very recently been made aware of this plan. So far I've got this working group met this evening and was dismayed to discover that according to Waits, the removal of the bike racks has already been approved. We consider, in addition, that the dropped curb will be rendered useless, which it will be, if there are tables and chairs. If there are tables and chairs in the space currently occupied by the bike racks.
I suppose the difficulty what we're wanting to ask licensing is that they stick to what has been agreed or what has been submitted in the plan by the business owner. Because if it is, and they are hard against the wall, it should facilitate enough movement around the edge next to the curb. Whereas if they're going to place them where the bike racks are, that will completely, because according to the plan, the tables and chairs are going to be against the wall, against this wall.
Yes,
which if they are,
still.
it should be. But if they're going to remove them and put tables and chairs here, then that will.
But people spread out. You can't actually.
We're asking for enforcement, and it's the. It's under constant review.
But we need to. We consider the drop curb will be rendered useless if there are tables and chairs in the space currently occupied by the bike racks. People on mobility scooters pushing buggies and wheelchairs will not be able to get by. Is that not the case? I mean, it seems to me to be blatantly obvious. I think it's extreme though, like. People spread, we spread.
But didn't that, yes, well, that was something that was also mentioned at the planning meeting.
It's enforcement again, isn't it? Because the tables and chairs that are down by the toll bridge, obviously they have very strict conditions about the tables and chairs not being moved and people not being allowed to spread. And to be fair to them, touch wood, they stick to those stipulations very well. I suppose that's what we're asking for here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's relying on, members of staff working at the waiting room.
Or can the tables not be concreted in place? That'll stop people
That would,
You see, either way, if the tables and chairs are moved to where the bicycle racks are, in some ways that solves the issue of the drop curb and the access through, although anyone going to sit at those tables will be, and waitresses will still be crossing backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
Because the drop curb's at the back, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. But it doesn't. But if they're next to the building, which is what that plan shows, it shows next to the building, and you've still got to, and anyone on a scooter or a person with a buggy and a child are going to be walking where the bicycle racks are, which is a very dangerous corner.
Yes, it is.
If they're spreading about all over the place, well, I can't turn right, I've got to go that way, and I've got to hope that there's no one else coming the other way.
So what do you think?
Do they assume, what we don't know is, does he assume that when you come up a drop curb, that you're going to come across the back of the
well, if they're going to put a barrier to separate their seating area, then I'm going to have to.
Yeah, but do they, because there's the telephone box,
Yeah.
so at the moment, would you be able to get around the telephone box and through? Except that don't Aussies have permission to put 2 tables and chairs outside the back of here, which would then encroach on that area.
There is room, unless that picture then shows they've got tables and chairs outside Aussies. Providing that's not blocked, then I can come along the back here and get through to go along the front. But
that's assuming that Aussies.
that's assuming that area is kept clear.
Yeah.
I want to make a statement, and we can't sit here forever. have we agreed on anything? I mean, what I've so far drafted is this web movement this evening to discover that, according to Waits, the removal of the bike racks has already been approved. We consider the dropped curb will be rendered useless if there are tables and chairs in the space currently occupied by the bike racks. People on mobility scooters, on wheelchairs and pushing buggies will not be able to get by.
I suppose what the argument is, the alternative route that we've been discussing down the past the phone box and along the back of what will be called the waiting room, is that an unreasonable, are we saying that that's an unreasonable
But how would
adjustment?
you get from the dropped curb to that passageway? You can't.
But in your
The
state,
pavement is incredibly narrow.
Well, this, according to the measurements that we've been given, it's 1.8 metres.
No, but if you, I mean, you get up onto that
Yes.
sort of peninsula island,
There.
but then you're saying you go back down there and turn right down the passageway.
Yeah.
But that pavement, how wide is
That bit isn't too bad. It's when
Oh,
you get to
right.
Aussie's.
Well, yeah, when you get here, it's,
You've
yeah,
got
that's
no
impossible.
chance.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, so beyond
Yeah.
yours is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But you could actually then
go up that way.
Oh, I
yeah.
see.
So I suppose that's the crux
But
of
you
our
have
argument.
to dodge the phone box and the two tables that
Yeah.
are already there.
So are we saying that that alternative route is unreasonable, or are we saying that it's acceptable?
Well, I mean, it's up to you.
It's a usable route. As I've just said to Dan, as it stands at the moment, I can come onto that drop curb, I can turn left, I can turn right.
Yes.
If they put a barrier across there to basically stop their customers from spreading across the drop curb, I can only go one way.
And that's go left.
Yeah, it looks well, straight ahead.
Oh, straight ahead,
along
yeah.
the back of their building, which
It wouldn't be too bad, would it? I mean, I don't know.
it,
what happens if you want to go to the butcher's shop or the caddies? You'd come round the back of the phone box area,
yeah,
you'd come to that corner,
I'd have to turn left to go along.
left to go to where Carpenter's is,
Mm.
but there's nothing on the other side anyway.
Not
yet.
at
So you'd have to go further up to the zebra crossing,
But then there's still
but
no
there's
drop
nothing
curb.
there.
So I'd have to come off at Carpenter's and go along the road against the flow of traffic.
Yeah.
On
So-
that corner.
But then I still couldn't get back up to
Right.
So as per the plan, this is
Which
it's a proper CAD drawing, so it's
When
really
when
high
the
quality.
Guildhall Square.
this portion of it is going to be the drop curb element, which is a
Okay.
10 mil.
I think we do have to mention in
Road
this that
costs front
we
doors
are,
there. That's the ancient highway.
Yeah.
So it's there. This
we would have
is
liked
Carpenter's.
Yeah.
time. So when
It's not-
exactly?
You see what
the
I'm
plan-
saying?
Yes.
They're not
When was the
visual,
plan
they're
submitted?
different. But
And
then again,
when
you might
was
not
the
be, they're not-
when did
it's probably
and we
safer
hoped the
because they're
consultation
visual.
take place?
Yeah.
I think we need to answer that because we would have put in
Yes.
or we could have negotiated
That
a
Yes.
way through.
Yes.
The current
And
profile,
I think
and this
that's
is
really
proposed
important that they don't appear to have done it.
No.
And it will,
So how did that application get through without consultation to all groups that were involved, all
Yes.
people, including
in fact, that whole thing.
access and
from what I get from
disability?
That whole side will be lower profile.
I
because it's
think we do have to make it,
Yes.
because there's no point us applying to putting anything onto
And then I
DDC
suppose
if
the
it's
stuff
already
that's around the back of the-
more or less being rubber stamped.
Yes. Well, we all know what. And I just don't think there's room there for tables, chairs, people, and getting through. I think you'd have to go left and go round by Aussie's.
And that's fine as long as Aussie's tables and chairs don't then
Okay.
encroach
Yeah.
onto that space.
Okay, so what I've written, we consider the drop curb will be rendered useless if there are tables and chairs in space currently, only it won't be rendered completely useless, will it? Because you could go left.
Yeah.
The use of the drop curb will be severely limited.
Yeah.
We consider the use of the drop curb will be severely limited.
Yeah, what we're asking for is no deviation from their planned usage.
If there are tables and chairs in the space currently occupied by the background, people on there will not be able to get by will not be able to get by between the tables and the waiting room. We cannot, in addition, we cannot understand how this decision has been made without adequate consultation with local.
Notification and consultation.
Yes, has been made without adequate notification and consultation.
As per your 28-day scenario.
And consultation over the 28 days. Without the statutory 28 days notification and consultation.
Yeah, for that,
It's, I suppose their argument will be their consultation is with local businesses and residents who may be affected by the street furniture. It's how wide they consider that
I
to
think
be.
you also said it had to be with a local council.
Yeah, it had to be with STC.
And STC hadn't had it.
Well, the street furniture one we have.
Yes, but not the bicycle rack.
No, I
Well, street furniture, what do you mean by street furniture? You mean the bike racks? Or
no, the tables and chairs.
The tables and chairs.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, yeah. I imagine a conversation has happened where they've asked about the bike racks and
Who's they?
The waiting room. They've had a conversation about the removal of the bike racks, and they've probably said, KCC have probably said, we may not object to them being moved if you pay for it.
Yes.
And your street furniture licence is accepted.
Yes.
So I would probably bet 100% that a conversation hasn't gone further than that, and then if the street furniture licence is accepted, they will then apply to remove the bike rack, and then the consultation will happen for removal of the bike rack. Then the waiting room are trying to put this all into one item, whereas officially it's 2 items, and we're only dealing with the initial table and chairs issue at the moment.
Well, it's 3 items. It's the tables and chairs, the bike racks, and the dropped curb.
Yeah. So should the street furniture licence be accepted, I imagine then they will apply to remove the bike racks, and then that will trigger the consultation about the bike racks.
But just about the bike racks.
Yeah. I imagine KCC have said to them that we won't even discuss the bike racks until you've got permission, because it's pointless discussing removal of something to facilitate something you haven't got permission for.
Right, okay. Well, are you happy with this statement going this evening?
Yeah, except that
to VDC licensing and hub?
I am, but I don't think the tables and chairs are going from that plan. They're not going to be where the bike racks are.
No.
They're going to be adjacent to the building, not where the bike racks are. So I think it just has to say we're not happy, or we would object to tables and chairs being in that space, because, regardless of more or less where they are, because effectively they are restricting.
Yes.
So it's not. So no, let's say, because he's going to come back and say that's not where I said I was going to put them.
Yeah.
So you've got the gist of that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you accept, I'll send you a copy of what I'm saying. Right. Now. The last item, which we might spend some time on, I hope we'll get a decision fairly quickly, is about priorities for spending the budget amount of £2,500 for the financial year 22 to 3. Now, we have got an estimate, if I can find it, for a dropped curve, which somehow comes out rather remarkably at about that amount. Yes, £2,300 plus VAT. And that's the cost of putting in a dropped curve by the Nationwide Building Society.
So,
Does that have to be absolutely our top priority and use up all the money that's in the budget?
Is there a breakdown of the costs? Because I
Yes,
imagine
there
the
is.
vast majority of that cost is legal for the for it to go to JTB.
No.
No.
This is from a builder. There's only one quote. I'm quite surprised that there's only one quote. Gerlach and Thorne Limited. And it's all about, take up approximately 6 metres square, excavate and remove, blah, blah, blah. Nothing at all about legal applications.
I think it depends, the priority will depend on whether we believe that there are some quick fixes which would help something immediately,
Yes.
or whether or not the one at the Nationwide, which is an essential one anyway, whether or not we're willing to sit and pursue that with Nationwide.
Yeah.
Our Nationwide planning on stage.
Well,
Yes.
that's the other thing, otherwise you can pay for that and use your budget,
You've
not have a Nationwide at all, and then of course
got a drop curve to
you've got a drop curve, well, yeah.
Well, I mean,
in terms of
curves
setting
are
back.
always useful, but I mean, I have another thing in mind, which years ago when I wrote the first policy document about disability access, which is to remove the bar across those posts at the top of Milk Alley, because if you do that, I mean at the moment it's important, I watch people try and get round those posts, pushing buggies, it's impossible, practically impossible. I mean, do you remember we struggled? And if that bar was removed, that would make life a great deal simpler. That's assuming, of course, it's possible to get up onto Milk Alley because there are no cars parked in front of the drop curve. But actually, we found there's another drop curve. So, I mean, I don't know how much. I have no idea how much that would cost. But it wouldn't. I mean, it wouldn't be anything like expensive.
And then you could still go down
Peter Street.
Lovelane,
Yes.
Lovelane, or you could turn into Three Kings Alley, and you could, on either of those, you could get to Strand Street. Now, what you do when you get to Strand Street is a slightly different issue.
Yes.
3 Hail Marys.
Yeah.
Go for it.
But you could get there, and you might be alright if you could join the flow of the traffic and you wanted to go to the Christmas on the Bell. Well, you still could cross the road there.
Yeah.
But I think I would agree with you that maybe the priority would be to have that removed. There'll be a health and safety issue.
Yeah, I recall having a discussion about this some years ago.
About bicycles.
Yeah, there was a reason, and it's whether that reason is
It was the safety
is
reason.
sufficient enough to override the accessibility issues. There's a conversation to be had there, isn't there?
Yeah. It was a safety issue because they said that anyone, like a child, anyone running up there, the barrier stops them running into the road. But I mean, perhaps, I don't know, perhaps even if they had two, but why does it work that way and not the other way? Because on the other side, if you come through Seven Post Alley, you've got two holes.
I'm sure that when probably remembering it wrong, but it was sure it was the width of Milk Alley made it a higher priority of classification of highway, and because Seven Post Alley was narrow and a walkway, that.
But then
you could drive a car down Mill.
I suppose when Milk Alley was originally designed, the car was probably sufficient to drive there.
But you could ask if they remove the pole, could 2 posts be put in?
A bollard, yeah,
So
absolutely.
you've got 2 bollards that would narrow it, but not so much that a mobility scooter couldn't get through.
As it stands, if it's there to stop cyclists charging up and down, it's easier to go around that pole on a bike than it is on one of these.
Yeah.
Because you've got a space that's maybe like that, which is sufficient to get a bike through at speed if you're brave.
Yes.
But you can't go
No.
one of these at speed.
Yeah. Can you? Well, I suppose you never go up some post down because you can't get down the other side. So it depends on whether.
Okay, reasonably well.
Yes.
Is there anything else, Chris, that you think would be a priority? I mean, that just occurred to me that, you know, it might be a fairly cheap thing to do.
Is it St Peter's Road?
Did you? Some post down.
St Peter's Road.
St Peter's Road. Yeah, it must be St Peter's Road because I've lain
Not
stopped.
anywhere else around the town that I found.
I've asked the question.
Right, yeah.
But if that was the priority, the second priority might be the drop curve at some point in Strand Street
Yes.
to get at least to the other side of Strand Street.
Or, you know, if we got a positive statement from Ainsley Court, you know, that they were happy for people to go, that we could build a ramp, or a ramp could be built. You know, there are a couple of steps, aren't there, from the pathway along the river, and then there are a couple of steps, I think, as I remember it.
Yeah, there's.
There would have to be a ramp there.
The flats.
But that would go hand in hand, Claire, with the crossover
Yes.
across the bridge to get from the car park on the quay.
Yes.
So you've got to come across the front of the bridge
Yes.
into that space, and then down there, and then it's about which comes first. Although I have to say, I don't think there's any harm in actually sort of saying that's sort of a priority that they need to look at themselves, because it should be. I mean, it is unsafe for anybody, quite frankly. That is, of course.
Yes. So, I mean, I could draft a little priority list which would include removing that thing across those.
Well, I've asked the question as to whether it's possible.
Ask who?
KCC Highways, the district
What,
manager.
just now?
Yeah, I've just sent the email off.
Okay,
So as
can
soon
you
as I
copy
get-
it to me?
As soon as I get an answer, I'll circulate it to the group.
Okay. So,
Just as to whether it's feasible.
has asked KCC,
The Highways Manager for Dover District.
oh, the highways manager. For Dover district.
Yeah.
Whether it is feasible to remove that bar, the bar, across the posts at the top of Mill Valley. Okay, and he will circulate the answer to the group. Okay, so I'll wait on that before I write a
Steps
priority.
usually pretty good, so yeah.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay. So CU will, once we have an answer, see you. I mean, how do you feel about spending that budget on a dropped curb outside the Nationwide Building Society?
We really, I mean, although like we've said before, that, you know, any drop curbs in the town are a benefit, it would seem a waste to put it outside the Nationwide if we don't know even an indication of their medium-term plans for the site. You know, I don't know whether there's any. We know they've only got a 5-year lease left on the building.
Yes.
You know, that might answer the question.
And you're going to send me who I should write to.
I will email that to you. I will email
Oh, you have,
yeah.
okay. Okay, and
I mean, it is an essential area, like, don't get me wrong, I mean, you think how you have to access it, and the way you've got to come around the town to get to it, I agree it is a pretty critical place, but what I do think is worrying is how many days are they actually going to be open? And you can get money from, albeit from 2 other places at the moment.
This is the problem. It may be our highest priority area for a drop curb because Nationwide's there. But if it's not going to be there may be somewhere else in the town that then suddenly becomes priority number 1.
Yes, quite.
Because, and then we spend all our money on making it
exactly.
accessible when we could have achieved more elsewhere.
Yes.
So,
yes.
That's my
and
hesitation.
It's not just one.
Yeah.
So I've said agreed that CU will draft a priority list for the 2,500 budget when we have an answer from DVC.
If you're putting drop curbs everywhere, it'd be nice to have a few through King Street as well, because
yes,
you can't get into the card shop and the newsagents, because the curbs like that on that side.
Yes.
And the
there's
other
one
side,
outside the sorting office that we discovered it's not usable.
It's not a terribly
No.
brilliant one.
But it
It's
might be
still
cheaper
like
to do something that would make that usable. That then you could get up on the pavement, couldn't you?
You'd still have to go down King Street. Well, it depends which way you're coming from, but if you were coming from the town, you still have to go down King Street on the road, because the pavements either side are not wide enough.
No, that's true.
Well, they are just about wide enough as long as no one else wants to use them.
Yeah, we know that people are.
The other end, at Potter Street end, no, it's the street that
Which one?
coming down, so you go against the flow of traffic through King Street, where the sandwich shop is on the corner.
What, no name street? No.
No, the one back from there, where there's now the bollard, stopping traffic going through.
Oh, Potter Street.
Potter Street. Yeah, I don't think there's a drop curb on that pavement, so you could get on the pavement along by the old post office, but you can't get back off it.
No.
So it's not going to do you
No.
too many favours. You got to come down, just a minute, turn over there.
Well, that was where the KCC was suggesting that you came into Foster Street, but you couldn't get through the alleyway that they'd suggested because it wasn't wide enough. And also, there was no, even if they could drop curb there, you couldn't get onto the pavement where the art gallery is, because that's very narrow.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Okay.
I think I'm a bit exhausted, and
No, that's right. You can't. Unless you.
So if you raise the height of the road, that'd be great. 2,500,
Yeah, might get about a foot done.
okay, do we want to decide on a next meeting?
I think you should, because otherwise we
I
can.
mean,
The Sue's diary gets very full.
Beginning of June.
yes, that would be good actually, because I think meeting every 2 months is not good enough really, and otherwise we won't make any progress. So today is May the 3rd, so we're talking about the week beginning the 6th of June?
Yeah.
May the 7th, June the 7th?
That's not the Jubilee week.
Oh gosh.
Or is it the week
Forgetting it.
Yeah, I think that's
well, yes, it is, that's the day off, because it's a bank holiday on the
Oh, right,
Monday.
yeah. Not that I'm doing anything, but I just,
We're having a street party.
I know,
There's funding available.
there's quite a lot, aren't there?
Is there?
DPC councillors have got some money to give away to local groups if they're holding street festivals.
You should apply. Is it too late to apply?
How much money is available?
Tell us how much you want and we'll enter a dialogue.
Well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Will it fund things like booze and that sort of thing?
No.
What will it fund?
It's been
Road closure? You got to
No, the road closure fees have already been waived.
No, we've closed the road. Sorry,
No, like supplies like party, you know, like flags and bunting and stuff
Oh,
like
gosh,
that.
yes. I've already bought quite a lot of stuff.
And what about celebratory mugs that you're going to give to everybody that comes to the pub?
Woodlandsborough Parish Council are doing Jubilee hand goods or mugs that they're going to give away to the kids in.
And you've got a
No,
street
that
entertainment.
takes time, doesn't
Have you
it?
got a street entertainment for the?
No, I don't think we have.
Little
I think the
bands,
expectation
little
is we're all going to entertain each other.
I don't know, we did
Oh,
that
well,
years ago.
anyway, let's just go back to, so are we saying that we'll all be far too hungover on the 7th?
Possibly.
Maybe
the 9th is down.
The night.
That's a Thursday. We don't know how Sue Chandler is fixed at all.
No.
Um,
Why don't we give her the option of the 7th of April?
Well, 7th, 8th, 9th, yeah. So
Okay.
email it to Lisa.
yes. So date of next meeting.
Yeah, at the moment I can do the 7th, 8th, or
Right.